I was torn from my sleep at 2 a.m., jolted awake by the shrill scream of my surge alarm, a sound every solar engineer dreads. The alarm blared from my grid console like a siren in a horror film. Stumbling out of bed, I rubbed my eyes, staring in disbelief at the inverter screen. A rogue 12-kilowatt spike was flashing, 4 times my usual nighttime draw. It was tied directly to my outdoor port. My heart raced with frustration. Without thinking, I grabbed a jacket, flashlight, and my phone and stormed outside. There, under the pale moonlight, stood a sleek black Tesla Model S plugged into my private solar charger. Beside it, arms crossed, stood Linda from the HOA. She met my glare with one of her own, cool as ice. "Your charger's free at night," she said, almost smirking. "I'm just cutting costs." I stood there dumbfounded, feeling like I was in some sort of twisted dream. But it wasn't a dream. It was real, and the sheer audacity of it all hit me like a punch in the gut. I'm an electrical systems engineer, and I had built that solar grid from scratch. Every wire, every battery, every panel meticulously crafted. It wasn't just about power. It was about freedom. But here was Linda, the HOA queen, who had already tried to find me for the unsightly solar panels, now siphoning my energy like she was borrowing a pen. I'd built a system to be self-sufficient, to stand against the grid. Yet here she was, treating my work like it was a free-for-all. I had never anticipated this level of nerve from the HOA, especially from Linda. I first met her at the HOA's annual meeting, when she somehow managed to snag the treasurer's role. The red flags were there, but we all missed them. She soon crowned herself a director of community standards and wielded her power like a sledgehammer, doling out fines for everything from mailboxes being too blue to skateboards on driveways, lawns deemed too lush. Most neighbors bent to her will to avoid her wrath, but I made the mistake of installing a battery unit near my fence, permitted, of course, matching my house's layout. To Linda, it was a visual blight that she couldn't tolerate. She demanded I relocate it or face penalties. I flashed my city-approved permits and explained that my off-grid setup was untouchable. But that didn't stop her. She sent me a violation notice written in Arial font. I shredded it, laughing at her pathetic attempt to control me. But now, this wasn't just about aesthetics. It was personal. She had gone from being a petty dictator to a full-fledged energy thief. "Are you serious?" I asked, my voice tight with anger. "You can't just tap into someone's private grid, Linda." She smirked. "It's outside your house. In a community, resources are shared." Her words felt like a gut punch. My carefully engineered masterpiece was now her public outlet, free for the taking. She had the nerve to say, "You should thank me for going green." I didn't yell. I didn't unplug her car. I simply went inside, pulled the logs from my system, and saw the damage. 78% battery drain in just 5 hours. It was costing me money and wasting precious energy. But I wasn't done. I checked the camera footage and saw her sneaking in, plugging in night after night, like it was a gas station. This was a mistake. It was a heist. I confronted her at her house, offering to drop it if she stopped and pay me a fraction of the cost of her theft. I handed her the data. She scoffed. "Pay for sunlight? Please," and slammed the door in my face. Days later, she filed an HOA complaint accusing me of hoarding renewable energy and claiming her board status granted her access to external utilities. My blood boiled. No more playing nice. It was time for retaliation. I spent the next few nights rigging a decoy port, safe but unstable, a surge loop designed to fry her charger without damaging her car. All perfectly legal. By Friday, it was hidden behind a fake panel marked "Private Grid. Do not use." I knew she'd ignore the warning. Saturday, 1:50 a.m. The console pinged again. Cameras caught Linda, wearing sweatpants and humming to herself as she plugged in her car. Seconds later, her Tesla sparked like a firecracker, hissing as it shorted out. She screamed, tumbling onto the grass. "It's broken," she yelled as sparks danced in the night. I leaned back, grinning. The electrical war had begun. By morning, I was ready for fallout, and it came sooner than expected. A furious knock on my door jerked me from my coffee. There stood Linda, flanked by two HOA members, Greg in flip-flops and Susan, looking uneasy. Behind them, her Tesla sat, charger scorched. "You sabotaged my car." Linda spat, her eyes burning with fury. Greg mumbled something about discussing last night's events, but I was in the mood for their theatrics. I handed them a folder with timestamps, video stills, and proof of her thefts. I pointed to my cameras and quoted her words. I figured I'd save a few bucks. Susan shifted nervously, but Linda was relentless. "It was outside. No lock. You had no right," she screamed. I shrugged. "You tripped a decoy port after ignoring warnings. That's on you. Now, let's talk about the damage to my battery." Linda stormed off, already on her phone demanding an incident response. I didn't care. I was done playing nice. The HOA sent me a notice accusing me of hazardous equipment, but I laughed, keeping it tucked away. My lawyer, a property law shark, saw the footage and logs, confirming trespassing, theft, and defamation. He advised me to corner Linda legally. I compiled everything, Spike's videos, her words, and had my lawyer send a cease and desist to her in the HOA, demanding she stop or face a lawsuit. To make sure she got the message, I installed a solar-powered sign. Private energy zone. Trespassers fried. Legally stealing sunlight. Linda. The sign glowed impossible to miss. And that, my friends, was the spark that lit the fuse. By Sunday, the video of Linda's Tesla sparking like a firecracker hit the internet. Teens across the street had leaked it, dubbing it Linda's electric karma. It went viral, racking up 3 million views. Her attempt to siphon my power had become the internet's favorite meme. At the HOA's emergency meeting, I presented my case, logs, footage, and the glowing sign. Linda tried to claim that the port was community access, but the board wasn't buying it. They suspended her, voided my violation, and suggested she apologize. As we passed in the parking lot after the meeting, she hissed, "This isn't over." I smiled. It was just beginning. But Linda didn't take the hint. She went rogue. I saw her again in the middle of the night, her shadow creeping near my solar panels, tools in hand, as she tried to tamper with the lock. The footage was clear. She was risking frying my grid, or worse, starting a fire. I sent the video to my lawyer and called Deputy Ortiz. He laughed. Guts, no sense. He logged it as trespassing and vandalism. And as I watched from my window the next morning, I knew this war was far from over. I spotted her on her porch, tea in hand, yelling about harassment. She wasn't finished, not by a long shot. In a move that could only be described as a last-ditch attempt for vengeance, Linda called the local news. A reporter named Miles Tate showed up, along with cameraman, eager to cover the neighborhood energy dispute. I didn't flinch. I showed them my grid permits, the logs, and all the footage, including Linda's failed attempt to tamper with my system. Miles's jaw practically hit the floor. The cameraman muttered, "She thought this was hers?" The segment aired that evening, balancing Linda's spiel about community resources with the sheriff's ongoing investigation and my unshakable evidence. The anchor's closing line was pure gold. "The sun's free, but the grid isn't." Linda's twitchy, defensive interview had the whole neighborhood in stitches. The memes came flooding in. One caption read, "Linda's voltage of shame," and before long, the HOA's Facebook page was flooded with them. The neighborhood turned against her. Notes started piling up, some mocking her attempts to find me for my dog's bark. A neighbor even dropped off a bottle of whiskey with a note that said, "Thanks for stopping her." But the real punch came at the HOA's emergency meeting, where Linda's reign came crashing down. The vote to oust her was 38-2, with only Linda and her husband opposing. Her Tesla, still broken, sported a sticker on its back window that read, "Charge smart." It was a final insult to her ego. Then came the community movie night. A blackout hit, and as the rest of the block plunged into darkness, my house remained lit, thanks to my solar grid. Linda, furious and still clutching the remnants of her control, stood in front of my house, shouting, "He hoards power," leaving us stranded. A neighbor rolled his eyes and snapped back, "He built it. What's your excuse?" I calmly displayed my grid status, proving the outage was entirely municipal. Her jealousy and envy were written all over her face. But the final blow came when I caught her red-handed. I watched from my security cameras as she snuck up to my panels, shears in hand, trying to cut my data line, thinking it was a power source. The air horn blared, and Linda went sprawling into mulch, her face a mask of disbelief. I hit record as she stammered, "I was just trimming weeds." I pointed at the labeled cable. "That's my sensor. Try again, and it's more than just noise." The next day, my lawyer filed a restraining order. I also proposed a new policy to the HOA, a solar boundaries policy, clearly outlining private grid rules and penalties for violations. The proposal passed overwhelmingly, with even Susan voting in favor. Linda didn't show up for the meeting. Her Tesla, unmoved, now had a gnome perched on its hood with a "Respect the Jews" sign dangling from it. The restraining order arrived soon after, officially barring Linda from stepping foot on my property. The HOA reimbursed me for the damages, which felt like the sweetest irony of all. But the kicker? A towing company sent her melted Charger back to her. I mounted it in a glass case, labeling it "Steal the Sun, Get Burned." Neighbors couldn't resist snapping selfies with it. The kids even dubbed it the Spark Trophy. Linda, defeated, listed her house for sale, but no buyers would touch it. Word of her shenanigans had spread, and potential buyers were spooked by her legend. Meanwhile, the city nominated me for a sustainability award. At the ceremony, I stood tall, a smirk on my face as I said, "Respect neighbors, respect grids, and never bet against petty." The mayor laughed, and the crowd cheered. My solar system hummed, unshaken by Linda's failed campaign. As for Linda, her empire crumbled to dust. Her Tesla was nothing but a relic of her failed control. She had tried to steal my power, to bend the community to her will. But in the end, it wasn't her system that survived. It was mine. I didn't gloat. I had built it, defended it, and let the current speak for itself. Standing by my gate, the shadow box glowing softly, I knew that real power isn't stolen. It's earned, wired, and guarded with truth. And when you mess with the sun, you don't just get shocked. You get burned.